Hi, this is Larry. What I'd like to talk to you today are about classes and objects. There's a lot that can be said about object-oriented programming and principles and concepts and practices, but today I want to just focus on classes and objects, the very basic understanding what a class is, what are objects, and a brief look at the very basic structure of how it looks in an object-oriented programming language, such as C#. So today what I want to do is talk about classes, that they have properties and methods, and that basically what an object is and how they can be instantiated and used. So keep in mind as we start thinking about this that everything you see is an object. Everything from dollars and cents, from computers, from music, to time and dates, to the nice little buttons that you have on your computer screens, to automobiles and all the things that automobiles can do. And of course, the cute little bunny. Everything you see and everything we interact with, if you think about it as an object that you interact in your physical world, can also be considered then an object in a computer. So the question you're asking yourself is, how do you create these objects within a computer? Basically, how does chip know what to do, or the computer chip know what to do? Well, here's some couple things that you need to keep in mind overall. First, you need to define the object as a class. When you see something as an object, you need to define it and create what is called a class within a programming language. Next, you're going to need to create an instance of the class as an object. So in the computer programming, you have objects, which are derived from classes. And then what you want to do is to use the properties and methods of an object, okay, so that you can actually do the things that that object can perform. So the first step to do is to define the object. As I said, everything can be defined. The first definition of things are basically properties. Those are the features, attributes, description, or data of an object. Anything that describes it, anything, characteristics of it, etc., of an object that you see that could be considered would be called properties. The next are going to be called methods. These are also the behaviors, processes, or functions, basically of what an object can do, basically what objects do. Okay? So for instance, if you take, for instance, the bunny rabbit, what properties does the bunny rabbit have? Well, it actually has long ears, a nice little cotton tail, long whiskers. Okay? What methods does the bunny have? The bunny can hop, right? The bunny can hop. The bunny can also eat carrots. And it can also crinkle its nose with its long whiskers. So therefore, what you want to do is create a class. A class then defines the object. So it defines it. That definition goes in what's called a class. And therefore, that class becomes the recipe or template to create the objects. So the computer needs to know what properties and methods there are before it can actually do anything with it. And that's all the class is doing. The class is just simply serving as a recipe or template to create objects. So these classes are going to then define the properties and define the methods. And understand that some of these things are going to be public and some of these are going to be private. For example, cash register. You can look at it. You can see that it has a display screen, maybe a receipt gets printed out, has a keyboard. And you know you have all those things you can punch and do. But do you know actually everything or understand how it really works? How does it calculate the totals? How does it get the actual values of things? How does it do what it does? So some things you can see publicly and other things are private. So understand that a class is simply a recipe or template to create an object which contains properties and methods, and they can be public or they can be private. As an example here, when we look at this class, we're going to, in C#, we're going to create a name called class bunny. And then inside of it, you can see string fur color would be what? A property, or some data stored about it. And next we're going to see public bunny hop. Bunny hop would be what? A method. And this is all classes contained in a namespace called furry friends. So in this case, this is a simple structure of a class. Now what we're going to say is once we've defined the class and we put that together, we want to create an object. And what you have to keep in mind are objects are an instance of a class, meaning that we're going to have the class, but we're going to create instances of it. The process of doing this is called instantiation. So instantiation means we're going to take a class, we're going to create objects from it. So let's take an example of a fish. Okay, let's say we have a class called fish. Inside of are the different properties that it has, such as shape, color, tails, bright eyes, etc. And those those basically are the properties, but then we also have the methods. For instance, open and close mouth, just like you see fish in an aquarium. Like sometimes they're just floating there, it seems like, and opening and closing their mouth. Now, we have that all defined in the class, but what do we do to create it? We have to create an instance of it. So we can simply create an instance of it based upon that, and we have what you can see pops up on the screen. It looks like a fish. And in this case, this fish is green because we've decided that the color is going to be green. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is every instance of a fish will have the same defined properties and the same defined methods consistently. The only thing that you can do with this at this point is basically change the value of the properties. For instance, let's say we wanted to create another fish, but in this case, we want to create it yellow and red. We could. So we can create the fish, and we can create it with the different properties, the values for different properties, but it would always still be the same fish, basically. Therefore, we've created instances of fish. So if we wanted to look at this, how would we do this? Well, let's say in our namespace for friends, we create a class called Bunny Farm App. It's going to be that app that actually runs and creates bunnies. Okay? So in this case here, if you look underneath Bunny Farm App, it shows bunny. So that's the class we created before. We're going to create an instance of the class called Thumper. And we're going to say it equals to new bunny. And new bunny is a method that would be inside the bunny class that would actually instantiate an object and create an object. In this case, we're going to call it Thumper. And then down below it, if you look at it, we're going to look at Thumper.bunnyHop. What does this do? It says, well, this object we created called Thumper, we're going to actually call and utilize the method bunnyHop. So we can do what? Make the bunny hop. One thing you have to keep in mind as you look at these bunnies or creating instances and objects is that you can create any amount of objects you want from that one definition of a class. Therefore, you can have them, they can have multiple instances, they can all be living at the same time, they can come and go. Thing is you have to watch out for is just don't feed them after midnight.